Good afternoon, and welcome to the Martin County Sheriff's Office. It's a pleasure to have each and every one of you. At the podium with me is Congressman Brian Mast to my left, Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody, Chief Assistant State Attorney Tom Bakadal, 19th Judicial Circuit, Homeland Security Investigations Daniel Ruiz, Jupiter Police Department Chief Daniel Kerr, Martin County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigations Sergeant Josh Kloster, Martin County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigations Detective Mike Fenton, who is the lead detective on this case. We also have in the audience dignitaries that I'd like to welcome and thank for being here. Assistant State Attorney in charge of Martin County, Nita Denton, Assistant State Attorney for Major Crimes, and the lead Assistant State Attorney in this complex case, Jeff Hendricks, along with members from the Health Department and members from the Human Trafficking Coalition. Let me start off by saying that this is a complex case that has been going on for months. I'm going to read just a short opening statement, which I think will help us get grounded, talk about what we have. We're going to do everything we can to answer all your questions. One thing I do have to share with you early on is that this case is just really in its infancy after the initial investigation. So we have dozens and dozens and dozens of arrests yet to come. We've served search warrants today. I'll get into that in a second. But as is always the case in a complex investigation like this, the tentacles of this go from here to New York to China, in Florida from here to Orange County. So there are going to be questions I cannot answer just because of the ongoing nature of this case. In July of last year, a Martin County Sheriff's detective responded to a complaint from the Health Department in regards to what appeared to be signs of potential human trafficking at a local massage parlor. The detective believed that the healthcare workers' concerns were founded, and he began a complex and lengthy investigation, which culminated in today's arrests and search warrants. Throughout this 8-month investigation, members of the Martin County Sheriff's Office, along with Homeland Security Investigations, Internal Revenue Service, Jupiter Police Department, Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, Sebastian Police, the Health Department, and law enforcement agencies from Palm Beach to Orange County participated. As of this press conference, as we speak, we have charged 2 individuals with racketeering, deriving support from the proceeds of prostitution, engaging or maintaining a place of prostitution, and money laundering. It was clear that multiple women were working and living inside the spas. They were cooking on the back steps of the business. They were sleeping in the massage parlor on the massage tables. They had no access to transportation. They were moved from location to location. They were averaging 8 clients a day, and if you do the math, that's approximately 1,500 men a year, with no days off. They were working late hours, oftentimes long after normal, legitimate businesses were closed. As a result of dismantling this criminal organization, we are in the process of seizing a total of $2 to $3 million in assets. This investigation will continue for the foreseeable future. What we found here on the Treasure Coast is not outlier behavior. Establishments such as these that derive their gains on the backs of coerced women thrive in communities throughout the United States. I think it's very safe to say, without any hyperbole, that this is the tip of the iceberg. If you look over to my left, which is your right, you're going to see 3 poster boards. The one on that my far right are pictures of the, symbolic anyway, of 100 or so end users, or Johns, that we will be arresting for participating as end users in this scheme. To their left, that merely represents some of the women that were victimized by this ongoing and racketeering case. You know, if you look at the men, and they're all men, I think what although you see black and white, those are everyday people in every sense of the word. They're married, many of those men are married, many of those men are in ongoing relationships. They have jobs, they work. And when we start making those arrests, they're all members of the community. And we'll have their pictures up there. And those pictures will be in living color. And they will be arrested and charged with participating in prostitution. The women to my left, on the other hand, symbolized by those 6 shadows, are never probably going to have the color and the light that the men have. Because they came here in the shadows, they worked in the shadows, and unless we're successful where others have not been, they are likely to stay in the shadows. And although they're living and breathing people with families and friends and children, they're somehow relegated to a different depth of shadow than the man on the right. If you ask me as I close my intro and open it for questions, who's the real offender in this? Is it the suspect we watched at Palm Beach International Airport with a picture of a young Asian woman that he would meet, that we would see within a very short time at a massage parlor involved in this? Is it the madams on the left who managed it and got the proceeds, some of which they undoubtedly passed on? Or is it the women that were involved in the act? I would contend today that it's the men in the shadows that are the monsters in this equation. And without moralizing, none of this would happen if those men were not availing themselves and participating in this human misery that's represented by those 6 silhouettes right there. So that's my summary points and my thoughts. Let me do my very best to answer some questions, and I have some very capable people up here with me that can help where I can't answer. How about if I start over here on the left? Are there any questions? I'll be glad to try.
Who are the 2 women?
Will's question, who are the 2 women? They are what we commonly refer to as madams. Of course, that's more of a figure of speech than it is a real title. They are the purveyors, the managers, the ones who manage the spas.
What's their date of birth and where do they live?
The question is their date of birth and where they live. We have a packet for you and you'll get all that information.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is a better question for Ms. Moody, but can you talk about how the RICO Act plays into all of this?
Ms. Moody? Attorney General Moody.
Well, what I will tell you is the Attorney General and as the chair on the Statewide Council of Human Trafficking, it was important that we were here today so that we can be here as a resource to all of the agencies who work together. This was a multi-county operation involving 4 sheriff's offices, Orange County, Indian River County, Palm Beach County, and of course Martin County, 3 municipalities, police offices, and certainly Homeland is involved, as well as NBI out of Orlando. So what you see, and what everyone should take note of, is this was a coordinated, cooperative investigation. And oftentimes, as you may know, my husband is in law enforcement. I was a former prosecutor, and we often used to say, sometimes agencies are pushing themselves out of each other's way so they can be the first to take down the bad guys. In this instance, when you have an egregious act such as this, people should be put on notice. Those that partake in these types of crimes will find agencies working together hand in hand to make sure that investigations are successful. And we've seen that here today, and you will continue to see that in the world of human trafficking. In Florida, as you may know, we are 3rd in the nation in terms of incidents of reports of human trafficking. That stops. All of the agencies are working together. This is of primary importance to them. It is of primary importance to my office. And this should be an example of how we will act going forward to stop this plague on our communities.
Can you just clarify as well? So we understand the health department is who kind of tipped you off to the first spa. How did the other 4 spas come into play? through
Yeah,
the
great
investigation?
question. The question was, the health department tipped us off to the first one. How do we roll into the others? We began the investigation on the first one, which is in Hope Sound. And through the investigation, and I can't reveal investigative techniques this early, but through that investigation, excuse me, we were able to link that one to others. So through bank accounts, through surveillance techniques, we realized we didn't just have one, we had multiple ones here in Martin County, and as soon as we started working on those, it rolled into Jupiter, who's here with me today, and throughout Palm Beach County, and then all the way up into Orange County.
So, the 2 women here, how many spas are we talking about in total? And how many women who are the, I guess the prostitutes or whatever you want to call them,
Right.
are we talking?
We served 3 search warrants today
8, sir.
in Martin County.
Yes, sir.
8 in Martin County.
Yes, sir.
We served 8 search warrants today in Martin County. I'm sorry, how many spas do we have in Martin?
3 total.
Yeah, 3. So we have 3 spas here in Martin County that associated with these 2 people, and then it has tentacles into the other counties.
So how many spas in total?
Within Martin County, sir?
Martin, all the counties that we're talking about here. So we have all the players here. How many spas in total are we talking?
We can say for sure with Jupiter location, that would put us at 4. I'm not at liberty to speak on behalf of the other agencies that aren't here, but I can tell you 4 total for sure with a coordination between us and Jupiter Police.
Well, who could talk about and give us an overview of all the spas? I mean, we have quite a few officials here and quite a few high-ranking questions.
Will's question is, who can give us an overview? The answer is this. Of the 4 search warrants we've served, we can release that, but because some of the search warrants haven't been served yet, some of the search warrants are being served as we speak, the case continues, so we will not be releasing information on any more than the search warrants we've already done. There are others coming, and there are other cases, other establishments that will get rolled up into this.
What about other places on the Treasure Coast that were hit today? You've got Jupiter here. That's not in Martin County. You're talking about that. What about in Indian River or Orange County or elsewhere?
Right. We'll get to that. All that. Josh, you want to talk about the ones we can talk about?
Are you asking specifically for spa locations or total locations?
Well, you have 5 spas here. How many other similar spas, parlors, salons, whatever you want to call it, are part of this investigation that you guys are targeting?
So,
You guys meaning
Law enforcement.
law enforcement in general. You've got federal, local, and state people here. If you can't talk about it, just say it. But if you can,
Well,
let's
I tried that
lay it
once,
out there.
I tried that once, Will. We're releasing as much as we can. I've already addressed how many we've had in Martin County. Jupiter is here, they can talk about theirs. But once we get past those 4 initial ones, we're gonna have trouble talking about it because they're ongoing.
Can you put this into perspective as far as other, I mean, we've heard of other stings or other operations where prostitution has been your focus, but how would you compare this to previous investigations as far as the numbers go?
How do we compare this to previous investigations? What tends to happen with these cases is because they're so complex, we actually had 3 detectives working full-time just on surveillance equipment in Washington. But because they're so complex, law enforcement is as likely as not just to stop it at the prostitution level and not dig deeper. It was clear to us that this was a trafficking case because of the circumstances I enumerated. They're not leaving there. They're 24 hours a day. The hygiene was minimal at best, just a bathroom. And so we took it upon ourselves to not do what could be the easy way out, and that is just close it down, get out of here, and we turned it into a trafficking case.
What's being done for these women? I mean, you mentioned there's risk of them hiding away in the shadows. What do we do to make sure that they don't become?
Yeah, that's a good
victims of this
question. What do we do to make sure we don't lose these women into the shadows? We actually have 13 Mandarin-speaking interpreters here today that went out to all the sites. We have talked to all the women who were being victimized, and our goal is to treat them all as victims and not as paid sex workers. And we've had success so far today. We have 2 that looks like are willing to cooperate. And, you know, we only have so much time today. But the problem with these cases is that the coercion is so subtle sometimes that it's impossible for us to uncover. You know, if you look at human trafficking as capturing a woman and keeping her against her will and locking her up, and that's not what you see with these spas or massage parlors. What you see instead are women that come here ostensibly to be maids or to work in restaurants. They bring their children. The children will go in one direction, maybe actually go to legitimate school. You have some of that in this case. And then the women end up, instead of working as aides in a healthcare facility, they end up in this situation. We find that their passports can be taken away from them. And so the coercion is not that they're at gunpoint. The coercion is more subtle, nuanced, and more difficult to discern. They may have loved ones in China, and they're afraid if they cooperate. They look at the police here as their enemy. So we have a big lift trying to keep them out of the criminal justice system and treat them as victims, which looks like we're having success so far today.
About how many women were victimized?
Excuse me?
About how many women total are we talking about? More than 6 here?
We have 2 women that have come forward that may be potential victims of human trafficking. We're still working through interviews with them at this time. But total throughout the Martin County investigation, just for our agency alone, we've been up to 6 potential victims.
And you mentioned New York and China and all these different locations. Can you specify more how they made their way to Florida?
Well, we know that in one case it was on an airline, and so the rest, they're just moving using traditional transportation means. These women are not coming here in handcuffs. They've been seduced to come here, ostensibly for some kind of legitimate work, and then they find themselves in this trade and they can't get out. I mean, try to picture for a minute, these are women who don't speak a lick of English. Their licenses are probably fraudulently obtained. They don't speak English. You can't get these massage licenses without speaking English. So everything about them is wrong. It's illegal. They're trapped, and they in their minds, I'm sure they can't imagine how to get out of this. So we have to have NGOs, non-government organizations here interpreting and doing our best to rescue them.
Sure, for these all adults, or were there any children involved?
Yeah, the question is, are they all adults? And the answer is yes, there were no juveniles.
At the Sequoia Apple Day spot today, when we swung by there, it looked like the glass door was cracked. Were any of the raids violent at all, or any sort of inkling of how that could have happened as well?
No, sir. All of our search warrants were of a soft approach. We did not utilize a SWAT team. We went in with due care. For that specific spot you're referring to, we didn't have an answer at the door. So the front door around the door handle was breached and then unlocked. But other than that, there was no other use of force at the entry or anything like that.
Soft approach, as you call it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, breach is the police terminology for weak pride.
Where were the 2, I guess, madams, where were these 2 ladies apprehended or arrested? Was it today, or where was it?
They were apprehended today, and they were apprehended at.
Both were residential locations that were not at liberty to give out yet.
So they were arrested at homes.
In Martin County?
One in Palm Beach County and one in Martin.
Were any of these operations happening at residences as well, or just in the day spas?
The question was, any of these happening out of homes? The answer is no. These were all at massage therapy or massage parlors.
As far as the women go in these cases, the victims are, what's being done for them? Are they going into shelters? Are they going to be staying long term as the investigation rolls out? Like, what happens next?
Good question. The question is, what are we doing with the women, the victims? And right now, they are being spoken to, as I said before, by people who speak their dialect. I think we have 13 interpreters here. We're doing everything we can to get them to cooperate and to be victims and treat them as victims. So right now, they're with us, and this is all very fresh. They're still here.
Are they gonna have like places to stay? I'm assuming
Yeah.
since they were sleeping at the massage parlor.
We will find a place for them to stay. We have people in the rescue industry are here with us, I think, in this room, actually, right now.
And are you able to be more specific about the kinds of things they were being forced and coerced into doing?
Can I be specific about what they're forced or coerced into doing? I want to be careful and sensitive, but, yeah, it was graphic sexual activity. Very risky behavior. Not, you know, one thing to think about is that there were, on an average, 2 out of 10 of their clients were actually women, legitimately going in for massage. And some of these places, the health issue and the bodily fluid issue is treacherous.
Do you think there was an opportunity for people, like, is there something we can learn from this as a community if women are going legitimately for a massage? Do you think there was, like, red flags that could have been reported?
Yeah, the question is, are there red flags that could have been reported? You know, some of these, I think you said you went to a couple. From the outside, they look completely legitimate. So I don't know that there's an absolute proof positive way. I just don't know the answer to that. They're hard to tell at the front.
So you have 5 businesses and 6 possible women. Can you know, was everyone in the business a part of this, or were some completely innocent, or, you know, normally it's more than one person working in a day spa?
Our experience, yeah, and on our cases, the question is, was everyone involved in the business illegitimate? And the answer is yes. We found, in the cases that we opened up, no legitimate workers. We did find people who may not have involved themselves in the acts themselves, but were taking the money and making bank runs and facilitating it.
What about the federal end of this? I mean, we started talking about China and different states. What's the federal involvement in this?
The federal government has helped us with finances and resources and intelligence, and they specifically do not want to comment today because of their ongoing cases, so they've asked me to share with you that they're glad to acknowledge that they helped, and I will tell you publicly they've been wonderful partners, but they cannot talk about the ongoing nature of these cases.
Do you think the case will ultimately be prosecuted in federal court against these 2 ladies?
Do I think the cases will be prosecuted in federal court? I think there's every possibility that there will be, yeah, because some of the money laundering and the I mean, we've got millions of dollars that we've already identified as assets, and so, yeah, we're gonna need help as we go forward. That's really been the problem with most law enforcement agencies, is that these are too big. These cases are way too big for a sheriff's office or a police department. We have to have the federal government's help because it's international.
Were all the workers, the ones who were engaged in the graphic sex acts, were all from China specifically? Well, you mentioned the Mandarin dialect, or were they from other countries in Asia?
Yeah, the question was, all of our workers, were they all from China? The answer is yes, they were, but different dialects.
Okay.
Do you prosecute these people? I mean, since there's so many being arrested under the same charges, is it a pretty uniform prosecution? I mean, how do you get all these cases through the justice system?
Well, we have the best state attorney in the state of Florida. We got the best attorney general in the country. So we have great resources coming. These people are in a lot of trouble. Those 2 women are in a lot of trouble.
What do they face?
Well, I can't speculate. I'm not sure what their criminal background is right now, but I wouldn't want to be them. This is a serious case.
Sharon, talk about the end user, please. So those, the 100 or so individuals you have on that board, do you suspect some of them will see this and turn themselves in, or what is your recommendation for those individuals?
Yeah, this is going to be a shockwave. I'm sure you all will run some film on this. And there's 100 men in Martin and some in Jupiter, some in St. Lucie County. A lot of those are Martin County, who know they've been going to these places, and they're going to wonder now if they've won the lottery. And 100 of them have. And so my advice to you is, if you've been going to these, you're going to get arrested if you're one of those 100. And I would keep some bond money with you.
So are you saying like, were there roughly, I know you're sort of generally talking about how these operations work, the women were living there, servicing a number of different customers a day, but generally speaking, is there like 2 ladies at each of these 5 spas, 3 or 4 who were engaged in these sex acts?
Yeah,
or
how many at a time were in the stores? From what I saw, looking at some of the surveillance, it looked like they had 2 at a time.
The 2 quote-unquote prostitutes,
2
I guess?
workers, yeah, 2 workers, I'm not calling them prostitutes, the 2 workers, but then there was someone at the front window changing around and being the receptionist.
Okay.
Back to the Johns, do we have any prominent members in our community that might face criminal charges?
Do we have any prominent members in our community? Yeah.
What would be your message to them?
Well, I would say the prominent and not so prominent. Let me put it this way. If you're not one of those gray boxes and you're going to these places, this should be a warning. And if you're one of those boxes, we're coming for you. I mean, it's a simple math. We got 100 people, 100 warrants in hand. Today was search warrant day. Today was answering questions for you. And the next few days we'll be finding them at home, at work. I mean, I guess you could, if you've been going to one of these places, you want to roll the dice, call us and give us your name and date of birth, and we'll tell you if you should come turn yourself in.
What other agencies should we reach out to talk to about other raids to make sure we're not missing any that are involved in this investigation? What other agencies should we ask?
Every agency that's willing to give out information is with me now. The other ones north of us are not, specifically are not, we didn't even mention specific police departments because they're not doing their search warrants at the same time we are. So our main goal is justice and to protect our methods and our sources of the investigation. We're releasing a lot of information now. I mean, here's the story. Women are being coerced into acts of sex. There's 2 people that were behind it. There's 100 men that were participating. You have the addresses and the locations. I've given you the bullet points on what is it exactly that makes us believe these were trafficking cases. We have 2 women now who indicate probably they're going to cooperate and testify. So we have a good case, and you have a lot of information. Some of the details will come out over the next few days or a couple of weeks.
So the agencies up north, for example, the Vero Beach Police Department just sent out a press release saying they are charging nearly 200 subjects. This is the same thing?
Yeah, the question is, Vero is announcing 200. Is it the same thing? The answer is yes. We worked with Vero.
So that's 200 additional to the 100?
Well, if Vero's, yeah, if Vero's doing 200, that's not up on that board. That'd be their own. Yeah, they wouldn't include ours.
You talked about this when you were reading the statement about how this like really isn't an outlier situation, but I think a lot of people sitting at home might feel like this doesn't happen here. And can you, like, when you heard about this, were you surprised? Like, what is the first thing that you thought of?
Yeah, your question was I surprised? And the answer is yes. I was surprised at the magnitude of it. I was surprised. There's more than what we have here. I have to be careful. There's a lot more than what we have here. There's a lot more in Martin County than we have here. We will not be able to get every one of these spas. Some of it is a manpower issue. Some of it is they're now up on it. They know it's not easy to get inside these spas and to get information to build a case like this. As a matter of fact, I think the Attorney General was the one who said, how did you do this? So it was really hard work. I'd like to point out Mike Fenton, Mike Fenton is our lead detective. Incredible amount of work. He made really it's lightning in a bottle to get a case like this at a local level. So what we're going to do is this: the rest of the spas that are here doing this business, we will get you out of business. I give every community member of Martin County my word. If there are other spas, they're all going out of business. I will see to it to go out of business. If I have to put a police car in front of every single one of them, I will get cameras and I will watch them and we'll make more cases. We can only do so much at a time.
You mentioned prominent community members. Are there any like celebrities or sports figures or I don't know? Just asking.
Yeah, Will. There's a prominent newsmaker as well.
Yeah, it's not me. I'm not prominent. I'm not prominent.
I'm not gonna. Yes, and before I stop, Attorney General will give you the hotline. Yeah, we can't get into the person's background. There will be a newsmaker in this one.
So, okay.
And just to clarify again, you said this was just tip of the iceberg, but how many arrests in total do you anticipate by the time all this is done?
Well, we have the 100 men. We have, there'll be more on that board there with those two. So I don't even want to speculate. I know if I do, I'll come over or under.
But
There are
including
more
all the
arrests coming.
jurisdictions.
With all the jurisdictions? Oh, well, hundreds of arrests. Look, this could carry on and go all the way through the United States. There is no end to this. No end to it. It is pervasive and it's real.
Is there a specific organization that was operating, like do you have a name, or is it like a gang, or is it an international thing, or?
Yeah, do I have a name? Is it a gang? Is it international? It's clearly international. We see no gang affiliation, and it's a lot of this starts in New York. We just know from this investigation. I have to be careful on that, how much further I go. But there is a part of New York where it seems there's a nexus with this kind of behavior.
Is there a reason they're picking Florida, like going from New York to Florida? Has that been made
Well,
clear?
yeah. Is there a reason to go to Florida? Well, there's the same reason they come here as they go everywhere else. Wherever you'll find end users that will use this, you'll find these spas.
Do you think there could be more, are there more women involved in running this operation that could be arrested?
Yeah, the question is, are there more women that will be arrested? Yes, I anticipate more arrests, more seizures. I mean, we follow as much as $20 million moving in and out of China.
These two ladies, are they like relatives at all? Do they know about each other, or?
We don't believe so at this time.
You don't think they're relatives, or you don't think they knew about each other?
I do not believe they're relatives. There's still a chance they may know each other. We're still conducting interviews and learning everything as we speak.
So it's not like these two ladies were teamed up and running this organization together?
They were running separate spas, but we are not sure at this time if it's under the same organization.
Okay. Okay.
There are different registered agents on some of the other spas that were reportedly raided today. Could those people potentially be arrested?
I'm sorry.
So these two women aren't the only registered agents when you're looking at, some biz filings for these spas. Could some of those registered agents be arrested?
Yeah, the question is, could some of the registered agents that were on these LLCs and whatever businesses they were be arrested? The answer is yes. Yeah, as we unwrap this, the more we get into it, the more likelihood is that we'll encounter other people who were part of this. There's not one of those people on the colored photographs were by themselves. We use RICO, racketeering charges, very judiciously. This was an ongoing criminal enterprise. Yeah, any notion that this was a local something, let me disabuse you of that. This is international.
And all of these five are related in some way to the several evidently in Indian River County that the Vero Beach Police is talking about?
Yeah, Will's question is, are they all related? Yes, everything going on now in Vero and the municipalities that we can't talk about are all related. They all spun off of our case.
Any in St. Lucie? I'm sorry, maybe you said this earlier, but I forgot. Any in St. Lucie County?
We have
No, sir.
none in St. Lucie.
What kinds of items are you seizing?
Cars, cash. Chief legal advisor, anything beside that?
Rental properties.
Rental properties. You all have been very kind and gracious. I think the Attorney General wanted to give a number.
I just want to commend all of the agencies involved. Sheriff Snyder, you and those of you that are responsible for this coordinated effort should be commended. How do you make cases like this? These are difficult cases to not only develop through investigation, but to prosecute. And you often have a tip. It can come from someone who is in a business legitimately and sees something that doesn't look right. It could be from someone who sees something in their community that suspects human trafficking. And so we are asking community members to be on the lookout for signs of human trafficking. In this case, someone saw suitcases and as if someone was living out of a spa and reported that to law enforcement. So if anyone in the community suspects that there is human trafficking or someone is a victim of human trafficking, they can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which is 1-888-373-7888. 1-888-373-7888.
Chief, do you have anything? We're good?
Can we just talk about what signs you should be looking for, maybe specific to this case?
Yeah,
like
what signs should you be looking for? What we learned from this investigation is that if you see any sign that someone is living somewhere, so there's a hot plate, there's clothes hanging up. I'm not talking about someone's going to change into their jogging clothes after work, but you see signs that they may be cooking there. Anything that would lead you to believe that somebody doing your massage is living in there, that's a clear sign that there's a problem. People don't live in businesses without showers and without dressers, and they're not sleeping on massage tables. Chief, you good?
Just say,
Absolutely.
I would just like to say, even though this has been a fairly long investigation, in the grand scheme of things, with the cooperation of all the agencies here, as well as some of our neighboring jurisdictions in Palm Beach County and elsewhere, came to a very, very positive conclusion. Again, Sheriff, I just want to thank you for your guidance in this.
Absolutely, Chief. Thank you. Our Congressman Mass is a great partner. I asked him, and he has nothing to add. Congressman, thank you so much. Once again, to our friends in the media, thank you. I believe in closing that there's more we can collectively do to stop this. And the biggest takeaway for me are those small silhouettes of the men. Those are the monsters. Those are the ones that make this work. It's their money that's traveling back and forth to China. And so if there's any way anybody watching this knows somebody who's doing this, ask them to stop, get them to stop. They're the ones that have imprisoned these women. They're the ones that hold the key to their freedom, because if they weren't going in there, this entire paradigm would stop. It would stop tomorrow if men weren't going in there, taking advantage of these desperate women. So thank you again for coming. God bless, and have a safe afternoon.